Yasya giritam manasandriyeta dikshasti cheta pranatibhisha bhajantamisham shushrusaya bhajana vignam ananyanya nindadishunya ridama ipasita sangha labdhya Krishneti yasya giritam manasandriyeta dikshasti chet pranatibhisha bhajantamisham shushrusaya bhajana vignam ananyam anya nindadi shunya ridama ipasita sangha labdhya. So this verse is very melodious, no? As you can actually, the meter that we sing in. If we sing in that meter, it's very easy to actually recite as well as memorize it. It's a little bit of a tongue twister as well. So you can actually practice it, and try to actually remember this verse by heart as well. So maybe we start with Parth, Prabhu. Maybe you can also recite and probably read the translation.
Yes, I will. Krishneti yasya giritam manasandriyeta dikshasti cheta pranitibhischa bhajantamisham shushrusya bhajan vignam ananya anya nindadishunya hridam ipsita sangha labdhya. Is it correct, Paul?
Yes. Just the third line, So just listen where we stop and start. And actually the last line, I think we sing it a little bit differently in this meter. So just pay the attention. I will sing it again, and maybe you just try to follow the same meter. So Krishneti yasya giritam mansandriyeta dikshasti cheta pranatibhisha bhajantamisham shushrusaya bhajana vignam ananyam anya nindadishunya ridama ipasita sangha labdhya. So last line is a little bit, which actually there is a pause, last three words. So you will actually come across many, next verses, couple of them also we sing in the same meter. So yeah.
So how should I go ahead and read the translation?
Okay, yeah.
Translation. Translation. One should mentally honor the devotee who chants the holy name of Lord Krishna. One should offer humble obeisances to the devotee who has undergone spiritual initiation, Diksha, and is engaged in worshipping the deity. And one should associate with and faithfully serve that pure devotee who is advanced in undeviated devotional service and whose heart is completely devoid of the propensity to criticize others.
Yes, yeah, thank you. Devanshi Mataji, you wanna recite the verse? I'm not sure. I think probably Devanshi Mataji may. Can you hear us, Mataji? Or is there any connection issues? Okay, probably, yeah, I think it seems like there is some issue. So we will continue, Prabhuji. So translation here, actually, as we discussed last time, actually we focused on actually the Kanishta Adhikari, our first class. So one should mentally honor the devotee who chants the holy name of the Lord Krishna. One should offer humble obeisances to a devotee who has undergone spiritual initiation, that is Diksha, and is engaged in worshipping the deity. And one should associate with and faithfully serve that pure devotee who is advanced in undeviated devotional service and whose heart is completely devoid of the propensity to criticize others. So here actually translation itself actually is talking about the three categories of devotees. So it's Kanishta Adhikari, Madhyam Adhikari, and Uttam Adhikari. Yeah. And there are the symptoms are given of each class. And as we discussed, I think the purport, actually we focused on Kanishta Adhikari last time, and we went through Actually there is a reference of Srimad Bhagavatam verse, Canto 11, chapter 2, verse 47, where a person who is very faithfully engaged in worship of a deity in a temple, but who does not know how to behave toward a devotee or people in general is called Prakrit Bhakta or Kanishtadhikari. So just to recap, actually, the Kanishtadhikari, who's actually engaged in a deity worship. So he is actually interested in deity worship, but his understanding of the Supreme is very limited. He thinks the Krishna or the Supreme Personality of God is only present in a temple. So he do not have this all-pervading realization of the Supreme Absolute Truth. So actually, this three categorization, as we look at all the Kanishta, Madhyama, and Uttamadhikari, they are actually based on the Shraddha or the faith, level of Shraddha or faith they have got. So Kanishta Adhikari is actually faith or Shraddha is a very soft and pliable. It's called Komal Shraddha. Whereas Uttamadhikari, he has actually developed a firm faith. And the Madhyamadhikari, he has a firm faith, and he's actually he knows that actually the object of love is the Krishna only, and he's actually also engaged in preaching activities. So we briefly actually touch on that point. Whereas Kanishtadhikari, as I said, he do not know how to actually behave with other classes of devotees, or he is not have that knowledge. So Prabhupada actually expanded on that point as well. So because he is in actually the lowest stage of devotion, and he do not have that proper training or the realization or the firm faith, then sometime he commit offenses as well, because out of ignorance towards other, Madhyamadhikari or Uttamadhikari as well. So we discussed that point last week. So today, I think we will just continue, and we focus on the next aspect, that is a Madhyamadhikari. So I think we'll stop here last week. So Parth Prabhuji, do you want to read so we can actually discuss as we go?
Hare Krishna. Prabhu, questions should be asked at the end, or we can ask them now also?
You can ask, yeah. If you have actually anything that related to last week.
No, in this like in this paragraph, like if there are questions.
You can clarify. Let's see what is the question.
Yeah. So what is meant by Prakrit Bhakta is Prakrit, because I think Amrish Prabhu, Avinash Prabhu, they also mentioned this term as Prakrit Sahajya, and then this is Prakrit Bhakta. So are these related, Prakrit, because the word Prakrit is common there?
I think that no, I think I need to check that, Prabhuji. I can actually, I'll come back to on that point. Yeah.
Okay.
I think that is actually a reference that is coming from Srimad Bhagavatam. So
okay, Prabhu. No worries.
okay. We'll come to that point, Prabhuji. Yeah.
Sure, Prabhu. Thank you so much. Okay. So, Prabhu, should I read?
Yes, yeah. We'll start. I think last week we stopped here.
Yeah. Okay. One therefore has to raise himself from the position of Kanishta Adhikari to the platform of Madhyama Adhikari. The Madhyama Adhikari is described in Srimad Bhagavatam 11.2.46 in this way. Ishvare tad adhineshu balisheshu dvishatsu cha prema maitri kripopeksha yaha karoti samadhyamaha. The Madhyama Adhikari is a devotee who worships the Supreme Personality of Godhead as the highest object of love, makes friends with the Lord's devotee, is merciful to the ignorant, and avoids those who are envious by nature. This is the way to cultivate devotional service properly. Therefore, in this verse, Srila Rupa Goswami has advised us how to treat various devotees. We can see from practical experience that there are different types of Vaishnavas. the Prakrit Sahajiyas generally chant the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. Yet they are attached to women, money, and intoxication. Although such persons may chant the holy name of the Lord, they are not yet properly purified. Such people should be respected within one's mind, but their association should be avoided. Those who are innocent but simply carried away by bad association should be shown favor if they are eager to receive proper instructions from pure devotees. But those neophyte devotees who are actually initiated by the bona fide spiritual master and are seriously engaged in carrying out the orders of the spiritual master should be offered respectful obeisances. In this Krishna conscious movement, a chance is given to everyone without discrimination of caste, creed, or color. Everyone is invited to join this movement. Sit with us, take prasad, and hear about Krishna. When we see that someone is actually interested in Krishna consciousness and wants to be initiated, we accept him as a disciple for the chanting of the holy name of the Lord. When a neophyte devotee is actually initiated and engaged in devotional service by the orders of the spiritual master, he should be accepted immediately as a bona fide Vaishnava, and obeisances should be offered onto him. Out of many such Vaishnavas, one may be found to be very seriously engaged in the service of the Lord and strictly following all the regulative principles, chanting the prescribed number of rounds on japa beats and always thinking of how to expand the Krishna consciousness movement. Such a Vaishnava should be accepted as an Uttamadhikari, a highly advanced devotee, and his association should always be sought.
Okay, thank you, Rojan. So here, actually, the second verse that is actually referred here, reference is given for Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 11, Chapter 2, verse 46. So here, a sort of actually definition of Madhyamadhikari is given. So, Ishware tad adhineshu balisheshu dusastu cha prema maitri kripo peksha yaha karoti sa madhyamaha. So, Madhyamadhikari is a devotee who worships Supreme Personality of Godhead as a highest object of love. So, the Madhyamadhikari, so he's advanced devotee as compared to Kanishtadhikari. So, Kanishtadhikari is a neophyte. So, Madhyamadhikari means he has a firm faith in Supreme Personality of Godhead, and as he says that he worships, Krishna as a highest object of love. So, he has a proper, realization. So there is also comparison being made to the Uttamadhikari versus Madhyamadhikari. So it is said that the Madhyamadhikari may not have the full fledged realization of supreme absolute truth. He may lack in that aspect, but Uttamadhikari has a complete, the full understanding or realization of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and he knows the all-pervading nature, or he realized the all-pervading nature of Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. So Madhyamadhikari definitely is much advanced than Kanishtadhikari. He has firm faith, and he knows the actually highest object of love is a Krishna only, and he worships, in that strong faith. So second point is made here. He makes friends with the Lord's devotees, right? So he knows the etiquette, actually, how to actually behave towards a particular type of Vaishnava. So he well aware, there are different kind of Vaishnavas depending based on their actually level of Shraddha. So there is Kanisht, Madhyam, and Uttamadhikari. So making friends with the devotees, right? So he's not envious towards other Vaishnavas, or he's not even envious towards a general, public or living entities. And the most important aspect for the Madhyamadhikari is actually he's fully engaged, as instructed by his spiritual master, in serving Krishna. And the most important thing is that Madhyamadhikari is actually engaged in preaching business, right? So this point is actually discussed many times before as well. So you all have heard that. So preaching has to be done on a Madhyamadhikari level, right? So Madhyamadhikari, why it is that the preaching has to be done on Madhyamadhikari? Because Madhyamadhikari means he has a developed strong faith, right? However, he still can able to discriminate between different living entities, and based on actually how they're inclined towards actually, learning about the absolute truth or Krishna. So he can actually discriminate and then preach accordingly. Whereas Uttamadhikari actually is not envious towards any living entity, and he sees everyone on the same platform, right? So, so there is a verse, he's like, actually, he has this equal vision. So there's a Srimad Bhagavad Gita verse. Vidya Vinaya Sampane Brahmani Gavi Hastini Suni Cheva Supakecha Pandita Samadarshina. So, the dog eater, or an elephant, or a Brahmana, So all these living entities, he sees them on the same platform because he's actually seeing the actually Paramatma within their heart, and he knows very well that actually Paramatma. So, so that is actually supreme, actually Paramatma. So he's actually one of the expansion of Supreme Personality of Godhead, and he's situated in everyone's heart. So he's looking towards, he's looking at each living entity, and he does not discriminate. But Madhyamadhikari, he can discriminate, and for preaching work, it is very much necessary. So making friends with the devotees, what does that mean? So do you have any realization on that, friend? What does that mean, making friends with the devotees, lost devotees? Hare Krishna.
So, making friends with devotees would mean taking association of like-minded people.
Yes, yeah, that's correct, Prabhuji. So he's not definitely envious about the other Vaishnavas. So definitely he's very friendly with all other Vaishnavas. And in the previous verse also, that you studied, so Dadati Pratigrahanati. So there are actually 6 loving reciprocations with the devotees. So so he knows the etiquette, how to actually deal with the devotees. So he's definitely friendly towards Vaishnavas as well as actually non-Vaishnavas as well. But actually being friendly, if you actually just meditate on that point, that you maybe want to be friendly with everyone, and other Ashwana, other Vaishnavas, but not everyone, will be actually friendly with you. So even you are in the preaching business, when you start preaching, so Srila Prabhupada actually made this statement that actually once you become, actually, if you want to become a serious devotee of Krishna, then you will have automatically create many enemies, So that is natural. And one of the big example is actually Prahlad Maharaj, He was a pure devotee of the Lord. And he was always surrounded by all his enemies, even they are actually their own family members or his own father, So that's why it is said that if you really want to be pure devotee of Lord, you actually need to learn to walk alone. But even actually the whole world may actually think you as enemy, you do not think them as your enemies, right? So that is a main point. So when you actually engage in preaching business, so there will be some people who are envious of you, or they do not like what you're doing, or they may criticize you. But you do not actually treat them as enemies, But here the instruction is given that actually one should avoid the people who are envious by nature. If they actually envy you, then you actually avoid their association. That is the best thing to do, rather than actually Srila Bhaktisandanta Saraswati Thakur actually said that actually it is in the best interest not to actually associate with the people who are actually envious, towards you or your pitching business, because by associating, there is a good chance that you will actually disturb yourself by their actually wrong association. Yeah. And another important point, not to associate with them, because if you try to actually be strong and try to preach them, and if they are envious of you, so if they are actually not a devotees, if they are actually people who do not have any trust in Krishna, so Gnostic people, right? So they can actually offend the Lord as well. So it is not really good idea to actually try to actually preach to people who are not ready to actually receive this message of Godhead, or who offend the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So if that happens, so it is best, because if you actually try to actually associate with them, so their actually offending propensity will increase. So that will further degrade those devotees who are envious. So by actually associating with them, you are also actually increasing their criticizing propensity or offending propensity. So they will further degrade themselves. So it's better not to associate with them at the Madhyamadikari level, right? So that is the instruction that is given here. That is two actually important points, is that you do not want to have their association because you do not want to get disturbed yourself. And second thing, that by actually associating with them, you may just incite them to actually offend more. So also that is not also going to actually good for them as well. So better not to associate with the people who are envious. And the third point here is one has to be merciful. Uttamadhikari is merciful towards the ignorant people. So when we say ignorant, these are just innocent people, who are just got carried away by a wrong association. Yeah, if they are actually associating with wrong kind of people, then they may just get carried away. That is how it is in this material world. Under the influence of Maya, people are very easy to get carried away. So, but if those people are innocent and if they are actually eager to receive this instruction of Godhead, then you become merciful to them, and you actually preach them, you teach them. If they are actually ready to actually accept those instructions. So that is actually best way forward for preaching there. So these are actually important point actually in connection with the Madhyama Adhikari. So yeah, being friendly with the devotees, so you actually reciprocate, because at Madhyama Adhikari level, you will have this knowledge, who's Kanishta Adhikari, who's Uttama Adhikari, and who's Madhyama Adhikari. So you can able to recognize them, yeah, by observing them or with their symptoms. And then accordingly, you can actually reveal your mind, right? As we discussed in the previous word, or you can actually have the exchanges. So that can be also done, yeah. But the most important point for the Madhyama Adhikari is actually the preaching business. So the question comes that actually we are preaching now. So are we at Madhyama Adhikari level? So the answer is no, we are not at Madhyama Adhikari level. We are still, very much trying to actually learn to become a devotee. But still we are preaching. But we're not preaching on the dint of our own knowledge. Right? So we do not think that we have all the realization or all the knowledge that is needed to preach. But what we're doing, we're preaching on behalf, right? So His Grace Ambrish Prabhu has trained us, so we have been trained what Guru Maharaj has actually taught them, yeah? So all the actually knowledge coming from Srila Prabhupada and what is mentioned in Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam. So all this actually knowledge coming to us through a Guru Shish Parampara. So we are not ready to preach, but we are actually given actually permission to preach on the condition that we preach on their behalf, right? So we're totally dependent on their mercy. So that's how we are preaching. So I think there should not be any misunderstanding that just because somebody is giving a class, because I'm now talking, I'm not at the Madhyama Adhikari level, right? So you should understand this point, because even Srila Prabhupada says that actually, if you just care for Krishna, you should go and preach that. You should not wait to become a Uttama Adhikari, right? Or become Madhyama Adhikari to actually start your preaching. So as long as your Shiksha or Diksha Guru is happy, or actually he has trained you well, and if he has a confidence in you, and if he allow you to actually preach on behalf of them, then you can preach, but that doesn't mean that we are at Madhyama Adhikari level. So that is very important point. Actually, I wanted to actually put that forward as well, because this is actually practical, So we just do not want to actually read and just move forward without understanding all the basics. So here in the purport, so here actually the reference is also given about the Sahajiyas, right? The Sahajiyas, they chant, Hare Krishna mantra, but they're still attached to the woman, money, and intoxication. So this is very different than actually what we have learned in this program. So when we come to these programs, in this Guru Shish Parampara, then first thing we do is actually definitely we start chanting, but we are very much actually encouraged to actually follow the 4 regulative principles. So that's very, very important. And as long as you actually adhere to these 4 regulative principles and you chant the holy name and you put your best effort forward to actually chant offenselessly, then your actually progress is guaranteed. But here the Sergias that actually referred, so we have actually discussed this point when we studied this Nectar instruction. So because even they chant Hare Krishna, it is written, Srila Prabhupada has written, they're still attached to the woman, money, and intoxication. So they are not very much different from the materialistic people, but they are actually started chanting the holy name. So the instruction given that we should respect them within the mind, but their association is not good. So we should not associate with the Sergias. Otherwise, because we are still learning, our faith is not strong, then there is a good possibility that we will also get carried away by their association. So association, as say sadhu sangha, so we should only associate it with actually serious, like-minded devotees, like Madhyamadikari level, or your Shiksha Gurus or Diksha Gurus, or when we actually talk about Srila Prabhupada and Srila Gurudev, they are the actually Uttamadikari level, right? So all the instruction they have given us, they are very much helpful. We should very much obedient to what has been instructed to us, and we follow them correctly. But the association of the persons who are actually Sergias, we must avoid that, at all cost. So that will be actually really helpful to progress on this path. And another point mentioned here that the neophyte devotees who are actually initiated by bona fide spiritual master and seriously engaged in carrying out the orders of spiritual master should be offered respectful obeisances. So initiation. So initiation point came up here. So once a neophyte devotee is accepted by his spiritual master and he's been formally initiated, and if he actually engage himself, or herself seriously in carrying out the instruction of the spiritual master, then he should be actually accepted as bona fide Vaishnava, and we should offer him a respectful obeisances. So that is also important. So these are all Srila Prabhupada's instruction. So this is an important point as well. So we will actually talk more about this initiation point. I think that reference will come later. But the important thing, okay, we'll actually touch that point again. I think when that verse reference will come. So in the second para, it says that actually in Krishna conscious movement, the chance is given to everyone without discrimination of caste, creed, or color. Everyone is invited to join this movement and sit with us and take prasad and hear about Krishna. So what it's saying, so as we know, the Krishna consciousness, is a non-sectarian movement. So everyone is invited. There is no discrimination. Everyone has a birthright to become Krishna conscious, as we know. So anyone who is actually willing to learn, this message of Godhead, given by these pure devotees like Srila Prabhupada, Srila Gurudev, and our disciplic succession, then we actually, we are very eager to actually, actually teach them or actually bring them in our company, like Hare Krishna WECAN program. We also invite everyone, general mass of people, to come and listen. And if they become interested, then actually there is a system in our actually programs that we slowly actually teach them very systematically, where we actually bring them from beginner level to the intermediate and intermediate to the leaders, leaders program. So that is actually what Srila Prabhupada has actually, he has a similar system in ISKCON as well, and we are actually following. Amrish Prabhu has a very systematic way in Hare Krishna WECAN. So we do not jump to the different level. We go step by step. So that is actually what we have experienced in this program. And same philosophy, we actually talk about the Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhāgavatam philosophy. We actually study all the Srila Prabhupada's books. We also actually, when we do the physical program, we cook actually bhoga, we offer it to Krishna, we give the Krishna prasad, right? So all that actually, these things are very, very important. So your devotional service start with your tongue, as we actually studied in text 1, right? So you chant with your tongue, Hare Krishna Mahamant. You also honor the prasad, and that is actually beginning of your devotional service. And the last point in the second para, what we just discussed, which is talking about the Uttamadhikari, where it says, out of many such Vaishnavas, one may found to be very seriously engaged in service of the Lord and strictly following all regulatory principles, chanting the prescribed number of rounds on japa beads, and always thinking of how to expand Krishna consciousness movement. Such Vaishnava should be accepted as an Uttamadhikari, highly advanced devotee, and his association should always be sought. Right? So Uttamadhikari, I think we should actually, if we get a chance, we should associate. So for us, actually, Uttamadhikari here is actually Srila Gurudev and Srila Prabhupada. That is what is our actually practical experience, right? So we know Srila Prabhupada, there is no doubt in Srila Gurudev, because we know, their instruction, their teachings, everything is in line, what has been described here. So Srila Prabhupada, as we know, that there is another trait that is actually given for Uttamadhikari, is that ability of that Vaishnava who can actually convert the large mass of people into the devotees. So that is another important trait about Uttamadhikari. So because he's so pure, pure devotee of the Lord, obviously he has that actually mercy, that he can actually able to actually convince and convert people into Krishna's devotees. So that is another trait, because we also preaching now, but we do not have that actually what we call it, intensity, or we do not have that kind of blessings or mercy that we can actually convert large crowd into the devotees. We cannot do that. But Srila Prabhupada has actually done it. There is a everyone knows that actually within 10 years span of time, actually he spread this Krishna conscious movement across entire world. In many countries he built 108 temples, and now there are more than 1 million devotees in his organization. So that actually, that trait or that quality in Srila Prabhupada, that's another proof that is definitely Uttamadhikari, or much more than Uttamadhikari. Yeah. So the point, important point is always thinking about how to expand Krishna conscious movement. So that is actually, the preaching aspect also come there, that one need to learn, even Ambrish Prabhu is teaching us, he's always, actually making plans, how to actually bring new devotees in, how we can actually teach them or convey this message so they become interested. So all this knowledge and training is coming to us, from Srila Gurudev, Srila Prabhupada, and we try to actually learn and implement the same. So by doing this, we are purifying ourselves, and we are actually learning by preaching. Actually, we are helping ourselves, not anybody else. Because by preaching, we are purifying ourselves. Our knowledge is increasing. Our realization is increasing. So in turn, we are actually progressing. So it is all beneficial to us. But Uttamadhikari is a person who always thinking about actually how to expand Krishna conscious movement all the time. So Srila Prabhupada also once said that actually whenever he has a spare time, he actually meditate on the point that how he can able to answer the questions posed by these materialistic people. So they're always thinking, about actually how to actually convince this living entities to take on this process of Krishna consciousness. So that is another important trait about Uttamadhikari. He's always engaged 24/7, and he want to actually expand this movement, to more and more actually people as he can. And we actually touch on that point with the Madhyamadikari, that where we say that it is in our best interest not to actually associate with the people who are envious. So that is correct. And I expanded on that point. Why? But it is also said that even the people who are envious, who do not have any faith, it is said that Madhyamadikari or Uttamadikari level, we should always meditate on this point, that how we can find a way so that we can able to actually make them interested. How we can able to drive that actually atheistic propensity out of them and make them interested. So there is no harm. So one should think, if you are at the Madhyamadikari level or Uttamadikari level, it is said that you should always think on those lines, how you can able to actually attract people who are actually not interested in Krishna conscious philosophy. So that is something I think another important point with actually Madhyamadikari or even at the Uttamadikari level. So as I said, Srila Prabhupada actually preached. He actually went to first America and then actually all the Western countries, even Australia, New Zealand, everywhere. He went and preached. But as I said, Srila Prabhupada was at the Uttamadikari level. But in order to preach, he actually he brought himself down to the Madhyamadikari level in order to preach, right? So Uttamadikari can do that, If they have to preach, then they will actually come down to the Madhyamadikari level. And at Madhyamadikari level, in order to preach, you have to discriminate, So the people who come to you, you have to actually identify actually if certain people coming to you, or if you come in contact with certain groups, if they are actually envious of you, then yes, it is done that actually you can actually stay away, do not take their association. So some people where in this verse, it is said that Prema Maitri, Prema Maitri, Kripopeksha. So Kripopeksha is actually, there is two words, Kripa and Upeksha. So Upeksha point. So some may say that actually we are actually discriminating and rejecting, some of the living entities or people who are envious. But in order to preach, I think one has to do that. That doesn't mean that that particular person who's preaching is actually envious of those people. So if they are envious, you can actually avoid their association, or you can become indifferent to them. But by doing so, it is said that that is a base medicine for themselves, those people. So you are actually being indifferent to them. So this is also actually in line with the actually Lord's mission. So in Bhagavad Gita, actually, where Lord Krishna says that Pavitranaya sadhuna minashaya cha dushkritam dharma samstha panarthaya sambhavami yuge yuge. So Srila Prabhupada, actually in this, the reference to the Srimad Bhagavatam, it is said, it is mentioned there as well, that those devotees, actually who are actually they are preaching at the Madhyamadikari level, they can become indifferent to those who are envious. But that is still according to the will of the Lord. They are not actually envious. They're actually doing this in order to actually preach. And also, as it says, this is also best medicine for the people who are atheistic nature as well. Because if you try to actually preach them, so they are most likely going to offend the Lord, right? And that is not good. And it is said that if somebody offends the Lord, in Veda, it is said that you should actually go and cut the tongue of those people. But Srila Prabhupada actually, in that purport, it is said that it is not necessary to do such things in this age. Base, we just avoid their association. Right? So we should actually be very clear about that point, right? The Upeksha is not actually, we are doing actually that Madhyamadikari is doing Upeksha, not out of enviousness, right? So it is best medicine for those people when they are ready, when they are actually receptive to actually take on this message, then they can be preached. Otherwise, just avoid their association. Because sometimes people who are not really at the Madhyamadikari level, so sometimes it is said that self-proclaimed devotees, right? They may be still at Kanishta, but they declare themselves to be Madhyamadikari. and under the guise of sometimes they say the equal vision, and out of mercy, they want to actually preach to the actually people who are to the people who do not have any faith in Supreme Personality of Godhead, the atheistic people, and they try to thrust the holy name onto them, and in return, they may again offend the Lord, So that is not really actually a good way to go about it. And it is said that people who foolishly do this, actually they will not receive the mercy from the spiritual master, They will not progress on this path as well. So that is something I think we should actually keep that in mind as well. Okay. We can continue reading path, Prabhuji. I will share the screen.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
So I had a question. Can
Yes.
I ask? Prabhu, in our classes, Amrish Prabhu tells that just analogy I'm trying to do. So like modes of nature, we have Sattva-gun, Rajas, and Tamasic gun. So anytime anybody is not just in one, it's a mixture of three, right? Somebody maybe Sattva may be more, but there is also Tamas and Rajas in small. It's a combination, right? So
Yes.
is it applicable for this as well? Like, if can somebody be Madhyama with some qualities of Kanishta and some qualities of Uttama? Is it a mixture of, or if somebody is Madhyamadikari, he has complete all qualities of Madhyamadikari? Or can he also, or if a Kanishta Adhikari is there and he's trying to progress, so he can have some Madhyama quality and most Kanishta quality, or like, are you getting the question, Prabhu? So
yes, I understood you. So you are saying that, yeah. So this is actually when one is actually progressing, actually from the beginner to the Kanish to the Madhyamadikari, obviously he's going to go step by step, right? So I do not think there will be any defining point that he will become a Madhyamadikari or, So even we are actually, as we learning, as we are being trained, as we actually follow all these rules and regulations, as long as we stick to this actually 4 regulative principle and actually with chanting, we try to improve our chanting, quality of chanting, then slowly you will progress, So at particular point, you will reach that actually Madhyamadikari level, But that is not something we should judge ourselves, So your spiritual master, or your actually Shiksha Guru who's training you, he should be a better judge of that, at what level you are. You understand, Prabhu? Yeah.
yes, Prabhu.
So what is actually the main point? Actually, it is possible that, when one is progressing from Kanishta to Madhyamadikari, so he will still learning, so he will going by step. So there will be a point that he is in the middle, between Kanishta and Madhyam. So what is your actually question around that one?
So my question was, is it possible that there is a stage even between like Kanishta and Madhyam? So where there is the transitory phase or something like that. Is it there, or is it an absolute change? Like Kanishta to Madhyama, no intermediate state. It is either Kanishta. If you have even one quality of Kanishta, you are Kanishta. For you to qualify as a Madhyama, you need to have all qualities of Madhyama. So that was my question. Is it possible? So that was, and I think you said that there is possibility that there are intermediate states also between Kanishta and Madhyama, where a person is transitioning from Kanishta Adhikari to Madhyama Adhikari level.
That is my understanding, Prabhuji, because when we say Kanishta, so the actually level of realization is very basic, right? They only believe the God is in the temple, the deities. They do not have this all-pervading, the realization of supreme absolute truth. Even for myself, so we have this information that Krishna is all-pervading, right? But that doesn't mean that I have that actually realized this in that knowledge myself. So we are going step by step, right? So when I started, actually, initially I didn't know this. We always believed that God is in temple, right? But now we know Krishna is everywhere. He's within in the smallest item. So it is a step-by-step progress. So my understanding, yes, actually, there is no defining line, So once your realization actually goes, from the Krishna is in the temple, but now Krishna is actually outside the temple as well. So you learn as you go, So you're learning all this actually instruction that is actually given in Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. And when you study the scripture, in association with the devotees, then you realize this point, and then you slowly progress, So we are actually progressing. So that is my understanding, Prabhuji. I do not think there is actually, absolute change at one particular point, It's gradual, actually, development.
Thank you so much, Prabhu, for answering that.
Yeah, thank you, Prabhuji. But actually, yeah, I will actually, probably I'll check this point with Amrish Prabhu as well, So make sure that our understanding is also correct.
Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Start reading.
What is 5:15? 10 minutes. Then maybe just we'll do this verses and then, yeah.
Oh. So sometimes, should I start reading from sometimes?
The process by which, where we stopped, I think we stopped here. The process by which. Can you see my screen?
Yes, bro. But like I'm just seeing that sometimes in autumn the water falls down from the tops of the hill to supply clean water. I think we haven't read this.
Oh, sorry, Prabhuji. I think. No. I think 1 minute. I just reshare my screen. Can you see it?
Yes, Prabhu. Yes.
Okay. The process by which.
The process by which a devotee becomes attached to Krishna is described in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Ante 4.192. Diksha Kale Bhakta. So, how to sing this book?
So this is actually, from Chaitanya Charitamrita. So there is a meter. Diksha Kale Bhakta Kare Atma Samarpana Sai Kale Krishna Tare. Sorry, Sai Kale Krishna Tare Krame Atma Sama. So I think it's a particular meter it is saying. This is not a Sanskrit, this is Bengali language. Okay. So Diksha Kale Bhakta Kare Atma Samarpana Sai Kale Krishna Tare Kare Atma Sama.
Diksha Kale Bhakta Kare Atma Samarpan Sai Kale Krishna Tare Kare Atma Sama.
Very nice, yeah.
At the time of initiation, when a devotee fully surrenders to the service of the Lord, Krishna accepts him to be as good as he himself. Diksha, or spiritual initiation, is explained in the Bhakti Sandarbha 283 by Srila Jeev Goswami. Divyam Jnanam Yato Dadyat Kuruyat Papasya Sanshayam Tasma Diksheti Sa Prokta Deshikaistatva Kovidahe. By Diksha, one gradually becomes disinterested in material enjoyment and gradually becomes interested in spiritual life.
Okay.
We have seen many practical examples of this, especially in Europe and America. Many students who come to us from rich and respectable families quickly lose all interest in material enjoyment and become very eager to enter into spiritual life. Although they come from very wealthy families, many of them accept living conditions that are not very comfortable. Indeed, for Krishna's sake, they are prepared to accept any living condition as long as they can live in the temple and associate with the Vaishnavas. When one becomes so disinterested in material enjoyment, he becomes fit for initiation by the spiritual master. For the advancement of spiritual life, Srimad Bhagavatam 6.1.13 prescribes Tapsa brahmacharyena shamena cha damena cha. When a person is serious about accepting Diksha, he must be prepared to practice austerity, celibacy, and control of the mind and body. If one is so prepared and is desirous of receiving spiritual enlightenment, Divyam Jnanam, he is fit for being initiated. Divyam Jnanam is technically called Tad Vijnana, or knowledge about the Supreme. Tad Vijnanartham sa gurum eva vigachet. When one is interested in the transcendental subject matter of the absolute truth, he should be initiated. Such a person should approach a spiritual master in order to take Diksha. Srimad Bhagavatam 11.3.21 also prescribed Tasmad Gurum Prapadyet Jigyasu Shreya Uttamam. when one is actually interested in the transcendental science of the absolute truth, he should approach a spiritual master.
Okay, thank you, Prabhuji. So here, let me stop sharing the screen. So Diksha Kale Bhakta Kare Atma Samarpana, Sai Kale Krishna Tare Kare Atma Sama. So here, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, this is a reference from Chaitanya Charitamrita, where it says at the time of initiation, when a devotee fully surrenders to the service of the Lord, Krishna accepts him to be as good as he himself. So this is a very important point, So when Diksha is given, to a devotee, the formal initiation, so it says that that devotee, fully surrenders to the service of the Lord. And at that point, Krishna accepts him to be as good as he himself. So, yeah, so when I read that, actually, this is very important point, so when you are initiated, and if you are fully surrendered, then actually Krishna accepts you to be as good as himself. So, yeah, so I meditated on this point, what this exactly mean. Because nowadays, actually, when there is a formal initiation being done, so is that really mean that that person become as good as Krishna? What do you think? Did you read this point when you read the purport? When someone get initiated, did he become as good as Krishna?
Krishna, Prabhu?
Yes.
Prabhu, like it is said that during initiation, we also discuss in our classes that our sins go away, like the spiritual master takes them, and there are zero sins. But then Prabhupada also says that we have the tendency to keep committing sins. So is it related that yes, at the time of initiation, maybe we become purified, but still we are all having the tendency to keep committing sins. So we become, so I don't know if I'm making sense. So we become
yes, that's correct point, Prabhuji, what you said. But here, actually, at the time of initiation, yes, actually, spiritual master, when you initiated, all your sin is taken away. That's correct. So, but actually, by taking all those vows, you should not again commit the same sins, But normally, that most of the time, people keep committing a sin, right? So that is our problem. But here it says when a devotee fully surrenders, so that is very important point here. That yes, initiation is given, to many devotees, and the vows are actually exchanged, and there is a sacrifice and all that. So that is all formal things. But what we have been actually taught that this is a beginning, not the end, right? So this is the beginning of our devotional service. There is a formal initiation. But the point here is said in Chaitanya Charitamrita that when a devotee fully surrenders to the service of the Lord, right? So the surrender point is very, very important, right? So there could be a formal initiation, but that doesn't mean that the particular devotee is actually fully surrendered to Krishna. The surrender can come much later, And what does actually surrender means? So one of the definition of surrender is actually when you surrender is not just bowing down and paying the Dandavat Pranam. That is not surrender. Surrender means actually accepting the instruction as it is, right? So as Srila Prabhupada, in Bhagavad Gita said, Bhagavad Gita as it is. So whatever is spoken by Krishna in Bhagavad Gita, one has to accept those instructions as it is and implement them practically in their life. So that is mean the real surrender. And from what this is my realization, it's not very easy thing to do, all the instructions that is being spoken. Just giving the example from Bhagavad Gita, to actually to implement that practically in your life can take, many, I don't know, it may be possible for someone to actually do this within one lifetime. It may not be possible for somebody for many, many lifetimes to come to this point, to have that full surrender, right? So do not actually take that actually instruction on the face value. It's not that easy to become as good as Krishna. So initiation is the beginning. There is a formal ceremony where actually the name is given, the vows are exchanged, but that is just the beginning. But if somebody is really fully surrendered, then yes, maybe this instruction may apply there. But do not think that everyone who is initiated, they are actually as good as Krishna. Or the second point, I think we don't have much time now. We'll discuss that point in next week. So yes, so we will conclude this session now. So if you have any burning questions, maybe I think we don't have real time now. So we will conclude. Just post any questions if you have in an intermediate class, or WhatsApp group, and we will actually continue with that point from the next week. Okay. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Amrish Prabhu.